Here's the legal bit before we start. Listen to Your Soul podcast provides general information and inspiration. The views expressed are those of the host and guests and should not be considered professional or medical advice. By listening, you agree to take responsibility for any actions based on the content shared. Welcome to Listen to Your Soul, the podcast where we explore self-discovery, intuition, personal growth, and the magic of living in alignment. I'm Sandy Banfield, your host on this journey of soulful transformation. This is the space for you if you're ready to trust your inner wisdom, embrace your power, and create a life that feels truly yours. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Listen to Your Soul. We are diving into the topic of creativity today, not just as an art form or maybe as an expression, but as a powerful tool for personal growth and soul connection. In this episode, I'll share how creative practices can open new doors to your soul's expression and guide you on a journey of self-exploration. Creativity isn't just about painting or writing, it's a powerful tool for personal growth. Plus, I have a special art meditation, which is a free download to help you tap into your creative flow. But more on that in a bit. I'm really excited to delve into this topic a bit more, so let's get started. Here's what we're going to cover today: the deep connection between creativity and self-discovery, how to use creative practices for personal growth, the role of play and experimentation in the creative process, how to overcome creative blocks and keep going. And lastly, we're going to be talking about the special art meditation, which is the free download that I've got for you to help you access your creative flow. So make sure you stick around to hear more about that. So this is a really interesting topic, and I really love how this has evolved in itself through the creation of this episode. I have been coming up with sort of title ideas and topics to sort of talk about. And what's really interesting in this whole process so far is that I don't really know how the episodes are going to evolve. Like, I have a sort of format and a structure in my head, but when it actually comes down to what is going to come up, it's really different to where I set out. So there is something in that which I think we're going to delve into, that creative process. So firstly, I wanted to talk about what is the connection between creativity and self-discovery, and whether you've actually ever considered that connection before. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Creativity is really a mirror to your inner world. When you create something, you tap into your subconscious mind. There you reveal deeper insights about who you are and what you desire. And that's why it's a powerful medium for art therapy, which has been used for many, many years. Creative practices allow you to express parts of yourself that words simply can't. And it's a powerful path for self-awareness and self-acceptance as well. When we are creative and we're in that creative energy, it can allow us to shift our perspective, to see old stories, emotions, or blocks. And when you make art, whether that's a journaling, drawing, painting, writing, or any other creative expression, because creativity can come in many forms, we also use play, and with that, we unlock new ideas. You're creating a beautiful energy of exploration. And when you're open to new ideas, you start looking at things from a new perspective, new angles, new roles, new perception, and often it shows up unexpectedly. And that's the brilliance about it. That's kind of almost the joy of it. It's the unexpected outcome. You don't know what the end game is. You don't know what the end outcome you're exploring. And it's kind of like this beautiful surrender of just going along with it. When you're looking at color and shapes, or maybe it's repetitive patterns, they can also be symbols for something else that you are processing in your own life, whether you are aware of it or not. And it's not just a simple practice of surrendering and letting go. So part of it is surrendering. It's start worrying about the outcome. It's about allowing yourself just to be in that moment, which we're not necessarily good at, are we, as adults? As we go through life, we've kind of almost forgotten that it's actually safe to surrender, and it's actually safe for us to let go. We always want to know what the next step is. We always want to know where we're heading, and sometimes that isn't what it's about. We sometimes have these set ideas when we're coming into something. And I just wanted to expand on a recent activity I've been doing with my children. We're coming into the end of the school term here in Australia, and we're heading into the Easter holidays shortly. So there's lots of Easter theme and things coming up, and we've been working on these Easter bonnets for them, which for the first time they're going to be participating in an Easter parade. And with that, I was really stuck. And I'm normally someone who comes up with a lot of creative ideas within my business. I do draw, I do art. I haven't done a lot. I will talk about this a bit more as we go along for a while. But I was going to plan to do the Easter bonnets with them, and I'd literally just had no ideas. And I was Googling, I was looking online, and I was like, oh, what are we going to do? Anyway, I just had one idea in my head about making some sort of nests, and everything I looked at was like making these paper mache nests using balloons that looked really messy and time consuming, and I only really had a few hours of an afternoon. So I just kind of went with that, and I had a look online, couldn't find anything. But I did find these kind of downloadable templates so you could colour in these eggs and these other little like animals and bugs and things. So I thought, oh, well, if nothing else, we can just find a base and I'll create these nests somehow. And still kind of stuck with an idea and didn't know what the end game was going to be. But I just really took joy in this kind of process and knew that I was going to be talking about this episode and like thinking, oh, this might actually help me in some of the content that I'm creating here. But what happened and what involved, we've got like a craft drawer. It's been overloaded. We haven't touched it for months because it needs sorting out, but I just went in there and I just found some random stuff. And the school wanted us to use recyclable materials anyway, so that was kind of a good incentive. But I used it up using these paper cake liners that I just had in the drawer. And then we used some shredded brown paper that I had for some of my packaging. And then I had bought these little birds from the shops because obviously I didn't know how I was going to make those. And we also bought these little fake eggs. But we ended up making these fake nests with these birds. And that was kind of the starting point. So that was it. We didn't have anything else. And then it just all came together. We did the colouring in. It took a lot of time to colour these little elements in and then cut them out. The kids were doing some, I was doing some. And the end result was really beautiful. And it didn't look like a perfect Easter bonnet or anything like that. But do you know what the most amazing thing was? Is that at the end of it, my kids said to me how they had the best time they've ever had and that it was really nice to have some quality time together. And as much as that was part of the creative process, it was actually that time we all spent creating together and that beautiful energy. And also just allowing myself the freedom to not be worrying about what the end game was with that, which I normally do. I really do. Normally I'm always worried, what's the end? What's it going to look like? And I just went with the flow. And because part of it was helping them, I wasn't creating it for me. So it almost let me release and let that go a little bit more as well. Anyway, I might try and see if I can put some photos on social so you can see what I'm talking about. But the point of that was that sometimes we get into these creative blocks due to perfectionism and not knowing where to start. You know, we start worrying about what the outcome is rather than just starting. And that can show up in many other areas of your life as well. I know it does for me. So I just thought that was quite an interesting point to cover. And maybe that's what we're meant to practice and take note of. To start before we're ready. Start creating without knowing the outcome, because it's really about the process. I guess that's what the message here. So the key point I want to cover on this is that creativity reflects your inner world, whether you realize it or not. By expressing yourself, you really uncover those hidden parts of yourself. And it's key to kind of see where those are mirroring in your life, the creative issues and blocks you might have and where that's showing up elsewhere. So I want you to ask yourself this question. Do you see yourself as a creative person? Because I have a lot of people who see me draw and do things like that and they're like, oh, I'm not creative. I've got no creative bone in my body. And I don't necessarily believe that. I feel like every single one of us has some creativity within us. It might not necessarily be just that black and white drawing or doing art or painting, but I feel like we've all got this creativity within us in some sort of art form. And it's really about unleashing that creative side of yourself. If you don't feel like you're creative, start tapping into where that might be sitting, stepping into that unknown. And then I want you to move on and ask yourself, what might your creative blocks be symbolizing in your life right now? What do you think it might be connected to? And this could be a really good journaling exercise as well. All right. So now I want to discuss how to use creative practices for personal growth. So creativity can be used as a tool for personal growth in many ways, whether you're journaling, painting, dancing, using some sort of creative expression, some sort of craft, Maybe it's just creative thought process. It can really help you process your emotions and discover new perspectives to gain clarity. And if you're facing a challenge right now, I want you to try and think about expressing it creatively. Use movement, maybe put a collage together, some color, even some words, and then ask yourself what it's showing you. Most of the time, the message isn't in the outcome. It's definitely in the process or a shift of perspective and looking at things from a new angle. And when you do that, things begin to soften and you're potentially being more open. And when you shift your perspective in a creative way, it runs parallel to real life. Have you ever seen one of those illusion drawings where you look at it in two different ways and some people will see it as the old woman and the other people see it as a young woman? It all depends on how you look at it. And that's what creativity teaches us. It's about perspective. And you can train your brain to see the same situation in a totally different way. That's really symbolic of life. And then if you start to reflect on any challenges you're having in your life right now, you might be able to see more than one perspective if you look at it. There's always more than one way to view a situation or an outcome. So then you can start to see challenges not as a wall, but potentially as a window, as a blank canvas. There'll be multiple ways to look at things, multiple options for you. And sometimes we can feel really stuck. And when we feel stuck, it's because we're only looking at things from one point of view. We're thinking there's only one outcome of this. And that isn't necessarily true. So this is your invitation to slow down, to take a step back and try and look at things differently through a different lens. And the key point here is that creative expression can help you to open new doors, not only in your mindset, but also in your thinking and your perspective. And the more you create, the more you learn about yourself, the more that you learn about the world around you. The creative process is something that is actually a form of self-care, really. Well, it can lead you to personal growth. It can lead you to adaptability. It's a really interesting concept if you think about it. And like when I said I started out with this episode, I honestly didn't know where this was going. I didn't know where it was going to lead. And it's been a huge lesson for me personally just to trust the process and allow what needs to come up. And as I work through sort of the idea of what I'm going to talk about, and I sort of set myself some bullet points, things really sort of grow and evolve. And I think the more that I kind of go with it, the more new things, new ideas just pop in. And it's been quite a revealing, interesting experiment for me personally as well. So let's move on. Let's talk about the role of play and experimentation in creativity. I want to talk about this because I feel like we've kind of lost our way with this as adults. And also as a parent of young children, I see them automatically become creative in so many ways, whether that's play, drawing, doing their music, coming up with new songs, coming up with a new creative dance. They create games all the time and they just do it so easily, so spontaneously. They don't overthink it. They're not worried about where they're going with it. It's this kind of joy watching them, this exploration, the adventure. And I think we've kind of lost our way definitely as adults with this. We don't do this in our everyday lives. We get so stuck on our thoughts. We get so stuck on where we're going and what the process is. One of the most important aspects of creativity is play. And when we let go of that pressure to be perfect, and I'm coming from a recovering perfectionist here, we can allow ourselves to explore new ideas, to experiment, and just to basically have fun. And this might be interesting when I'm talking, seeing if this is triggering you in any way or how's it making you feeling when I'm saying these words? I know for me, I don't have enough fun or play in my life. And I know when I hear those words, it does trigger me because I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do that anymore. Really don't feel like I do, like at this stage of my life right now. So this is why this episode for me has been really interesting to explore as well, because it helps me start to let go and look at things and think about how I can implement some of this in my own life. Creativity thrives in an environment where we make mistakes and where they're celebrated. And that's when learning happens naturally. And that's what we do as children. And as we get to adults, we've forgotten about that. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve. By experimentation, adventure, play. The children do this with no effort at all. And you did once too. You've just forgotten. You've got stuck in the ideas. You've got stuck in the end goal. So have a think about what creativity means for you. It doesn't necessarily mean, like I've said already, about art or drawing. It's not that black and white. It can come in many forms, whether that's food, play, writing, creative thinking, just moving beyond the norms. Children are our greatest teachers here. And we've forgotten this art of allowing ourselves that freedom of movement, imagination, and play. So the key point here that I want to cover is that play is our sacred form of self-expression. And it symbolizes freedom, possibility, and joy. And when we play, we return to that part of ourselves that remembers how just to be in that state of flow. And that's really when the magic begins. So what do you do when you are having a creative block or writer's block or whatever you want to call it? And these blocks can be fleeting, they can be for a short amount of time, or they can stay with us for a long amount of time. And the key to overcoming them is not forcing creativity to happen. Instead, it's creating a nurturing space for yourself to reconnect to your creative flow. And if you're feeling really stuck and not sure where to start, maybe you don't feel like you're creative, or maybe you are and you just have had a bit of a block for a while, the good news is I've got a couple of tips for you. So one of my favorite tools for breaking out of that creative rut are these cards called Creative Whack Pack cards. And they're created by Roger von Eck. Hopefully I pronounced him right. I'm not over sure about my pronunciations, but they are a little bit like Oracle card decks, but these have been designed with more creativity and innovation instead of spirituality. And they're a really fabulous tool. And these were introduced to me probably over 15 years ago with my very first coach when I was doing this creative finance course, part of property investing a long, long time ago. That's when I first came across these cards. And I still use them now. And I don't actually have the card deck myself. I do have them on an app, and I'm going to talk about a bit more. But these cards have been designed to spark that creative thinking, break down those mental blocks, and they help you approach problems from a new perspective. Really allow you to kind of look at things differently, which you might not do on your own necessarily. Each card comes with an explanation, encourages you sort of unconventional thinking. And they're perfect for anyone feeling really stuck or in need of just some inspiration, or really to start shifting your thinking around something, looking at things from a different perspective. And sometimes the best ideas come when we let go of that logical side of our brain. And that's when we can invite in this more creative thought, a little bit of that magic. So the way the cards work, you would shuffle them, or if you use the app, you can actually just click on a button that gives you the whack of the day. So if you just want a random card thrown at you, or there's actually like, I think, a 4-card spread that you can go through and you can tell it what your situation is, and then it'll pull 4 cards for you randomly. And it's really good just to kind of look at things from a new perspective. It really kind of jogs your thinking. It's quite clever. And there's 4 different key areas of the cards. There's Explorer, new ways to look at things; the Artist, looking at imaginative transformation; there's Judge, which is about decision-making tools; and then there's a Warrior, which is all about taking action. So if you just want to download the app on your phone or get the cards, I think the cards are on Amazon. I often pull a card when I'm feeling stuck, and I let it guide my next action. And sometimes it's wildly surprising, if nothing else. It always reminds me that there's another way to look at something, at a different situation. So another tip if you're feeling stuck and you're having a bit of a creative block is this book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And if talking about things that you want to kickstart, if you haven't naturally been feeling the pull to get back into your creative flow, this book is about helping you move through those blocks. And I first read this over 10 years ago when I'd had a real creative block. I don't think I'd done any drawing for maybe 8 years or something, might have been a bit longer. And I just didn't feel like I was creative anymore. I used to do A-level art in England when I was 18, before I went to university. And then I just really lost my way with it. I never did much of that afterwards. I did a jewelry making course, I think. I do have a lot of creative outlets, but just not in the natural drawing and painting that I used to do. And so for me, I was like, oh, well, I'm not creative anymore. One of my favorite takeaways from this book is called The Morning Pages, and it's a practice of writing 3 pages longhand with no structure, no overthinking, You go and write 3 pages every single morning, and it's just a pure brain dump. It's like a journaling exercise. It's not about writing something beautiful. It's about clearing the gunk from your head so that creativity can flow in. It's allowing you to create space, because it's wild how things can just sort of bubble up, the worries, the to-do lists, the random thoughts. Then all of a sudden you land on a nugget or truth or a breakthrough, and you just didn't know where that was sitting there. And it's kind of like decluttering your mind via journaling. And it's just amazing how well this works. So it's a really good book to go and read and explore. And it really helped me get out of a creative rut about 10 years ago. And then I started just drawing loads of mandalas, and it just took me on another creative journey. And I've had a bit of a creative block recently as well. I've created my journals a couple of years ago. That was my creative outlet. And that way, in a work front, I do writing. I sometimes do poetry and writing when I get inspired. But I haven't done a lot of drawing. And then recently I've actually picked up my pencils again. I did a drawing, and then my kids have asked me to do some more. So that's kind of inspired me to do a bit more. And I don't know, I think I just forced myself one night, and I was just like, and I know what happens. I start drawing. I don't like what I'm doing. And then I realized I'm focusing on what the outcome is. And rather than just sitting and enjoying the process, and I have to be honest, I wasn't 100% sure about this drawing, but my daughter loves it. She's going to keep it. My mum saw it. She now wants one. So I'm going to do one for her. So sometimes you need to go through that feeling of feeling uncomfortable, that resistance. You've almost got to push through that. You're going to nudge through that a little bit. And if it's helpful, maybe you need to find some accountability with someone. Either that could be, booking yourself into a workshop, a writing workshop, or a craft workshop or something. Or I've got a friend who we are planning to go, and we've been talking about it for ages, and we've been trying to make it happen between sick kids and life and everything. But we are going to go and have a morning and go and find a nice, beautiful, quiet spot, and we're just going to sit and do some drawing together. And we said we don't even have to talk. We can just take ourselves a coffee and go and sit and draw. And for me, I just think that's a really beautiful way for making me be accountable and going just for the joy of that experience and not worrying about what the outcome is with that. So what actually happens, I'll probably give you a little update with what happened with that experience. But I like to go somewhere to do my writing. I don't necessarily do that at home. I have to go and take myself somewhere where I feel calm and somewhere I can kind of dedicate the time. And that's kind of how I decided to pick up my pencils again last month, how I do my craft, my kids. It's allowing me just to create that space and know that I'm going to be having this beautiful quality time. So another interesting way to look at creativity is as a mirror in shifting perspective. Because creativity invites us to look at things through a new lens. When we shift our perspective in our art, it often mirrors what's happening in our life. That color we're resisting, it might represent an emotion we've been avoiding. That blank page we keep skipping could be a symbol for the conversation we're maybe not ready to have. Creativity really can become like this portal for us. It's not just for expression, but for insight as well. As many of us live on autopilot, we're living in such high-paced lives, whether we like it or not. We've got information coming at us left, right, and center. But creativity just asks us to stop, to pause, to notice, to slow down, to play, to listen. And when we create, we practice looking at things from all sides, all angles. And that's one of the most beautiful things about this, most powerful tools that we can have for our own transformation, for reflection, and for our own personal growth. The key point here really is talking about just releasing those expectations, to let go of that need for perfection and trust that creativity is going to flow when you allow yourself the space for it. Okay, so we've covered quite a lot here today, haven't we? So to help you tap into your creative flow, especially if you're having a bit of creative block, or maybe you just don't feel like you're a creative person, I've got a beautiful free download for you. It's a guided meditation that's going to guide you through the process of deep relaxation, and it's going to help you release those creative blocks and connect to your inner artist, whatever that looks or feels for you. And you can use this download to help you tap into that creative part of you, that creative practice, and cultivate a sense of playfulness. When we are creative, that's when we can't worry about the past, we can't worry about the future. We are just right there in the present moment. And that's part of that beauty of it as well. So the key point here is to use creative tools to connect to your inner self. All right, so this is a good point just to recap what we've covered because there's been quite a lot here in this episode. So number one, creativity reflects your inner world, and it's a tool for self-discovery and unlocking your inner wisdom. Number two, creative expression can help you to open new doors by allowing you to process emotions and uncover what hidden truths are there. Number three, play is a sacred form of self-expression, and it's really essential in the creative process. Number four is release expectations to help you overcome those creative blocks and allow that space for creativity to flow. Look at tools that can help you, like those Wattpad cards I mentioned or the Artist's Way book. And lastly, number five is to try the art meditation, the free download to access your creative flow, further guidance. And the link will be in the show notes, or you can go and download that at businesslifemagic.com/art meditation. All right. So the juicy bit that I really love doing it in these episodes is the Soulful Challenge. And so this episode's Soulful Challenge is for you to take one small step towards being more creative this week. It might actually be doing one creative practice, or maybe it's using the Wattpad cards or the app. Maybe it's just starting to do some reading or listening of the Artist's Way book. You might be booking yourself into a creative or craft workshop, something that maybe you've had your eye on, or maybe just something you just go and have a look at and see what grabs your attention that you might want to go and try out. Or lastly, it might just be going and listening to my free meditation that you can download. So I just want you just to allow yourself to play without judgment and just to see what insights arise. Take note of any symbols or shapes or colors that are showing up for you again and again. And I want you to explore what that means for you. I want you to remember creativity is more than just a hobby or a skill. It's a real sacred path to self-discovery and to your own soul's expression. When you allow yourself to explore, to play, and to create without judgment, you really do reconnect to that part of you that has this inner wisdom through that creative practice and through that creative process. So a beautiful quote I wanted to throw in here is, "The creative process is a process of surrender, not control." That's by Julia Cameron, the author of The Artist's Way. Just remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to start. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode. Don't forget to download your free art meditation and tap into your creative flow. I'd love to see what emerges for you. Come tag me as usual, send me a message and share your experience. I can't wait to see what unfolds and what creative expression comes forward for you. So until next time, that's all for me. Thank you for joining me on Listen to Your Soul. I hope today's episode brought you some clarity, inspiration, or a little spark of magic. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who you feel might need this message.